I'm taking just the killing school. Class start next week. We gotta at least have.
Lil Jeff wasn't just rapping about violence. He was living it, unfiltered and unapologetic. From bragging about bodies in his diss track FTO to mocking fallen rivals without a hint of remorse, his reputation as one of the most ruthless figures in the streets only grew. He turned real-life violence into entertainment, laughing about murders on Instagram as if they were jokes. And if that wasn't enough, he took things even further, gunning down 2 high school students and still finding humor in it online. Cold-blooded, unfiltered, absolutely savage, one of his most ruthless acts was the targeted hit on Lil Gutta. Lil Jeff lived by a single rule: strike first and make it brutal. Of all the things he did, this one stood out: a broad daylight execution, carried out without hesitation. No mask, no fear, just a clear message. If you crossed Lil Jeff, there were no warnings, only bullets. He wasn't the type to let things slide. When someone from his side was killed, revenge was inevitable, and on May 13th, 2021, he delivered it. It was a regular afternoon near East 79th Street in Chicago. The streets were busy, cars moving, people chatting, stores full of customers. No, one knew a killing was about to happen. Lil Jeff had been keeping an eye on Lil Gutta, real name Ronnie L. Sizzdrunk Jr., for a while. Gutta moved through the city like he had no enemies, unaware that his name had already been linked to a CRW murder a month earlier. Whether or not he was actually involved didn't matter. What mattered was that Jeff believed he was. Jeff was patient. He wasn't reckless. He waited for the right moment. Gutta had just stepped out of a store, distracted by his phone, completely unaware of what was coming. Then bang. The first shot hit his chest, making his body jerk as his phone fell to the ground. Before he could react, another shot, then another. Every bullet was meant to make sure he wasn't getting back up. People screamed, some ducked, others ran. But Jeff didn't panic. He didn't sprint away. He simply walked off, blending into the crowd like nothing had happened. By the time police arrived, Gutta was already dead. Witnesses had seen everything, but no one dared to talk. The streets knew who was responsible, but silence was the rule. A daytime hit like this was enough to send whispers through the city. But Jeff didn't stop there. He took his savagery to the mic and turned 7 bodies into lyrics. The drill scene had always been known for bold lyrics and street talk, but in March 2024, a song dropped that blurred the line between music and confession. The track was called FTO, and as soon as it hit the streets, it became one. Lil Jeff wasn't just rapping about bodies, he was bragging like they were trophies. His delivery was too specific, too detailed, making people question whether he had actually done everything he claimed. But one line in FTO stood out more than anything else. Jeff directly called out Lial by name, mocking his death with the line, "Lial dumb in a pack. We smoke him." This wasn't just a disrespectful lyric, it was an open celebration of someone's murder. And that wasn't the only part of the song that got people talking. Another verse took aim at his former friends, the ones who had once been close, but were now his enemies. He even rapped about how his crew had unleashed so much gunfire on Rads Avenue that their rivals had no choice but to shut down their drug operations. If true, this meant his side hadn't just taken lives, they had taken over entire trap spots, forcing their enemies to flee. The song spread like wildfire, blaring from cars, blasting at parties, and being dissected in drill forums. Some people argued that Jeff was exaggerating, while others believed he had really claimed 7 bodies. No matter what the truth was, one thing was clear: Jeff wasn't afraid of what he said or who heard it. His reputation for self-snitching had already been growing, but FTO took it to another level. Was Jeff inflating his numbers, or was he really keeping score? That question didn't last long. His next move made it clear that when Jeff rapped about murder, it wasn't fiction. Gets revenge for Z Money by killing Lil Pooh. Lil Jeff had been waiting for the perfect moment, and when the time came, he made sure it was merciless. The death of Z Money had left a wound that only blood could close. In March 2023, Jeff set his sights on Lil Pooh. Pooh, real name Pierre Boozer Jr., had been moving as if nothing had changed. He still hung out in familiar places, laughed with his people, and acted like his name wasn't being whispered in the streets. But Jeff had already decided Pooh wasn't going to see the summer. The plan was put in motion days before. Jeff didn't move recklessly. He wasn't the type to roll up and start spraying bullets at random. Instead, he let Pooh's own routine work against him. Through mutual connections, he spread word that a certain block was safe again, knowing Pooh would hear it. Pooh took the bait. At night, the trap was set. Pooh pulled into the driveway of his home, the same place he returned to every night. He stepped out of his car, nodding at someone he recognized. The night was quiet, the distant hum of the city the only background noise. Everything seemed normal. Then the lights in the lot flickered, just for a second, barely noticeable. But in that brief moment of distraction, a figure moved out of the shadows. Bang! The first shot hit Pooh in the leg. He dropped to the ground, clutching his knee, trying to crawl toward his house. He didn't make it. More shots followed, fast, unrelenting. The last one struck him in the back of the head, leaving him face down on the pavement. A car engine roared. Tires screeched. Disrespecting Z Money came with consequences. Just days before his own death, a leaked song from Lil Jeff surfaced in which he rapped about hiding in the grass, waiting to strike, describing the exact way Lil Pooh had been ambushed. Most would have laid low after taking out an enemy, but Jeff wasn't done proving himself. His next move came quickly, and this time it was from a moving car. Orders a drive-by on Black Lil Jeff had made plenty of enemies, and when things got serious, he never hesitated to eliminate them. In March 2022, the streets were buzzing about a drive-by shooting. The target? Roger Lewis, known as Blacka, 33-year-old OG respected in his area. That evening, Black was standing outside his house, casually talking to someone, unaware that a car had been creeping toward him. The backseat window was cracked just enough for someone inside to get a clear shot. The car slowed down. A brief pause, then gunfire. Black barely had time to react. Bullets tore through his body before he could turn. He collapsed onto the sidewalk as the car sped off into the night. The neighborhood went silent. Some people ducked inside their houses, while others peeked out, already knowing there was nothing they could do. By the time the police arrived, Black was gone. A month later, a man named Trayvon Dix was arrested in connection to the shooting, but even after that, people kept talking. Many believed Jeff had ordered the hit. Tensions between his crew and Black's people had been escalating, and this seemed like a calculated move to settle the score. Jeff never publicly addressed the rumors, but he let his music do the talking. A few weeks later, he dropped a track with lyrics hinting at how some older guys think they run things until they get caught standing outside at the wrong time. It was a bold statement, and people immediately linked it to Black's murder. But a drive-by wasn't the peak of Jeff's recklessness. Just months later, he took things even further. When 2 bodies dropped on the same night, the streets knew this wasn't just war. It was domination. Orchestrates a double murder. Lil Jeff had been involved in countless violent moments, but November 1st, 2023, stood out as one of his most ruthless. 2 lives were taken that night in what many believed was a calculated execution. The targets were Denardo Buford, known as Lil Deuce, and Desiree Hay McGee, known as D-Money. The two friends had been sitting in a parked car on South Dorchester Avenue, probably thinking it was just another ordinary night. Maybe they were talking, scrolling through their phones, or just passing time completely unaware they were being watched. A black SUV had been circling the area. It passed by once, then again, moving slow. No sudden movements. The shooters were waiting for the perfect moment. Then it happened. The SUV rolled up and stopped a few feet away. The door swung open, and within seconds, gunfire erupted. Bullets shredded through the car. Glass shattered, metal crumpled. Lil Deuce and D-Money never had a chance. The attack lasted only a few moments, but the damage was irreversible. The shooters jumped back into the SUV and vanished into the night. Both victims were critically wounded and rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but it was too late. Neither survived. Police arrived quickly, collecting shell casings and questioning witnesses. But as always, no one was willing to talk. The case remained open. No charges were ever filed against Jeff. Still, the streets had their own way of confirming things. In March 2024, Jeff posted a cryptic Instagram story. Just a few emojis.